Welcome to the Manifesting Latina podcast, where you'll learn to unlock your incredible power of manifestation and connect deeply with yourself. I'm Dr. Norma Reyes, your guide and host, helping you manifest a life filled with purpose, abundance, and inner wisdom. Together, we'll dive into the art of manifestation, practical techniques, personal growth, and the magic of aligning with your deepest desires. No more feeling stuck or disconnected. It's time to awaken your inner manifester. Embrace your spirituality and create a life that truly resonates with your soul. Tune in each week to the Manifesting Latina podcast and begin to manifest your dream life. Hey everyone, welcome back. This is episode 119, and this week I have a guest interview for you all. This will be the first for season 4, and their name is Rita Soledad Fernandez-Baldino, a queer Mexican-American, a former math teacher turned self-care and money coach. As the CEO of Wealth Para Todos, Soledad is determined to make sure that more BIPOC women and LGBTQ folk learn how to take care of themselves to financial independence so they can work because they want to, not because they have to. Who doesn't want that? I know I want that. So they teach people how to create and follow a financial plan that prioritizes self-care and puts them back on track to becoming work optional. Disclaimer, Soledad, Wealth Para Todos community is also my money coach. I'm excited to be part of the program as well. I cannot wait for you all to hear their story on today's podcast. So let's go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for being here with us. And I always like to start with giving my audience a background to who they're listening to. So tell me about your family background. Where did you grow up and who did you live with?
Hi, everybody. I am a queer Mexican American. I grew up in Los Angeles with a single mother, but I was supported or raised a lot by my grandparents. My grandparents supported my mother a lot. And in high school, I spent all of high school living with my abuela, and my tia. And so I kind of moved around because my mother, it was hard. It was hard. We grew up in a neighborhood where there was a lot of gun violence and a lot of poverty and gang violence. And so my mom needed a lot of support from the family. And luckily, we were all pretty close to each other. So I spent a lot of time with them. And I have an older sister and a younger brother. And now I live in LA still.
What else would you like to share about yourself with the audience? And I gotta say, that sounds rough to grow up and all of that. So if you want to share anything about that.
Yeah, I think it definitely shaped me a lot in terms of what I thought I could achieve in my life. I definitely grew up thinking I don't know if I'm going to live past 18 because I had lost friends to gun violence and there was people in my circle who had been shot. So I just always thought I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to live past 18. So I was very YOLO all my life. I wasn't much of a planner. Planning just felt very inaccessible and unrealistic because I thought you just don't know. I lived in a neighborhood where there was just so much uncertainty, and the idea of planning for the future just was very inaccessible to me. And it's interesting because now here I am, a money and self-care coach, and I help create financial plans for people to retire early. And so now I plan and make these financial plans for 15 years from now or plus. And so the journey of going from you can't plan because you don't know what's going to happen in life to, it's good to plan. It's really become, I think, the beginning of a lot of my manifestations.
Yeah. And, as I've watched, or not that but I know that I've been watching you, and I would have never known based on just the way your personality shines that you had so much adversity growing up. I can't even imagine what it feels like to feel like, oh, I don't even know if I'll live to 18. And then, I'm sure there's a lot of shifts that had to happen to get you to this place. But that's one of the reasons I love to share stories with our community so that they can see they're not alone. While I didn't grow up with that kind of violence, I did grow up in poverty in a different way. So, share with us any of your educational or work life achievements.
So I graduated from a high school that had a 54% dropout rate, and people did not go to college. Like I think our college, like just applying to college was like around less than 3%. And that included community colleges. We weren't even talking about like four-year colleges. So I graduated from a high school like that, and I applied to 9 schools, and I got accepted to all except the one I really wanted to go to, which was NYU. So I got accepted to 8 of the 9 with full scholarships. And I ended up going to a small liberal arts school here in my neighborhood because I was dealing with health issues. My health issues started at 16. So at 16, I was in a wheelchair because of my health issues. And I never knew when I was going to get sick again. And because of that, I was afraid. I was afraid to be too far away from home and get sick on my own. And so I went to this small liberal arts school in LA in order to like be close to home, and because they also required you to live on campus. And I really wanted to get out of my house. I grew up, hardcore Mexican Catholic family, and I was queer, so like really, really hard, really, really hard to be in that environment constantly. So I definitely wanted my freedom. And then at that school, I ended up dropping out after dealing with all sorts of adversity as the only STEM Latina math major at the school. And I was going to school with all wealthy white guys. And they made it very uncomfortable for me to be in the class. And I struggled. I struggled in terms of that because in my high school, I was prom queen. I was well liked by my peers. So all of a sudden to be in an environment where I was being harassed was so unfamiliar to me. And it was very uncomfortable. And then I kind of got to this point where I was like, or, even after I talked to professors and administration, and they're like, look, this is what it's going to be like. And they were like, this is what it's going to be like for the rest of your life. So get used to it. And I just had this thought of like, if I'm going to deal with discrimination, I might as well be dealing with discrimination at the school of my dreams. And so I decided to drop out of Occidental. I enrolled to a community college. My mom dealt with all sorts of health issues at the time, and I helped her pay her mortgage. So I dropped out of school again, and I got multiple full-time jobs. And I was working, and not full-time jobs, part-time jobs, multiple part-time jobs, but I was working 60 hours a week with multiple jobs in order to support my mom. And then I got to the point where I was offered a job that paid $15 an hour. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to be rich. I'm going to be rich with this $15 an hour job. I get that job. And then I was like, now I don't have to work multiple jobs. I could just focus on this one $15 an hour job. And then they let me go. And I was like, damn. So I remember it was Halloween, and I was dressed to go to the club when I said, before I go to the club, I think I'm going to apply to go to NYU. And it was October 31st. And by December 14th, I had gotten accepted into NYU. And by January 6th, I moved to New York City. And that's where I ended up getting my bachelor's and my master's.
Oh my gosh. I can't even imagine it. And how old were you at that point?
20.
20. Okay. Yeah. And even without knowing it, right? That was like your divine inspiration, your divine intervention of like this intuitive hit to let me do this. Cause I mean, who's applying to college right before going to the club on Halloween Day?
In a leopard costume.
Well, forever memorialized. If you have any pictures from that, I'm like thinking about all the random costumes. Oh, yeah. Let's not think about Halloween. Okay, so then you were there and you finished. Okay. While growing up, did you have any spiritual practices or beliefs that played a role in your manifesting journey that you remember?
So I grew up Catholic, and I was lucky in the sense that the Catholic churches that I went to did focus a lot more on spirituality versus like
Like
like I would say dogma.
condemnation.
Yeah. So I never thought God didn't love me because I was queer. It was not something
Okay.
I
Yeah.
thought. I definitely grew up thinking like God loves me. God loves me no matter what. Unconditional love comes from God. And I grew up believing in, um, Jesus and the Virgen de Guadalupe, and that going to church was something that we did every Sunday. I had my confirmation. However, I feel like my spirituality, I questioned religion starting in high school. And that was also around the same time that I got sick and was in a wheelchair. And I remember my mom saying to me, like, you're questioning God. Because I was like a biology, I was really into biology and I had been taking AP biology at that time.
Mhm.
And so my mom was like, you're questioning God and now God is punishing you. And that's why you're dealing with these health issues.
Oh no.
And so that was like kind of the first time in my life where I was like, I was really unsure. I was really unsure in terms of spirituality and religion and now and faith and hope. I was struggling physically. I didn't have internet at home. I didn't have a television at home. So I would spend these long days at home alone, bedridden. And my mom would tell me to pray for me to get better, but it was also at the same time that I was like learning about evolution and I wasn't sure if there was a God. But I remember laying down on my bed, looking outside of my window and really focusing on dreaming about a different reality. And that felt very spiritual to me. That felt very full of a lot of faith and hope. And when I'd go to the doctors and they were struggling to figure out what was wrong with me. Now we know I have celiac disease. Back then we didn't know. And they're struggling to figure out with me. My mom's telling me, just like accept that you're in a wheelchair. And I'm telling her, please take me to physical therapy. Like, please take me to physical therapy. And she's like, oh, it's not even working. Because I was in the wheelchair for a year and a half. And I was so determined that I was going to walk and dance again. Because I used to dance when I was in high school. And I remember I would just spend time laying in bed, dreaming about walking again. And it was like, I would imagine myself walking in with a certain outfit to the school dance or walking into like my classroom when I get to return to high school, right? Because
Yeah.
I even had to take like a school leave. And I just imagined myself walking and I would be at physical therapy on a treadmill, struggling so much just to take steps because I was in so much pain. But in my mind, I was imagining myself running. And I just got really, really good about believing and seeing, imagining things that were not physically present in my life. So I would say that was
Yeah.
like a big shift. And I think over time, I've gathered so much evidence that if you can imagine it, if you can dream it, then con tiempo, you could also achieve it.
Yeah. Which is a visualization, right? You're just using a different word. And I'm just thinking like you're visualizing without having the words for it. And that's how you were able to walk again. I can't even imagine that either. So you said celiac disease. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because I know I'm not very familiar with it and what it does or causes.
Actually so simple. You just can't eat gluten because when you eat gluten, your body starts to attack itself. It's an autoimmune disorder. And so what would happen to me is I would eat, a pan dulce, or I would start eating just fideo. Fideo is like a type of pasta, like a type of noodles. And if I ate too much of it, then eventually I'd get sick. and it would cause inflammation in my body. And then with that inflammation, it would be really hard for me to move. And I'd also deal with nausea and just a lot of pain. They thought that I had fibromyalgia. They thought at different times I had thyroid disorders. They thought I had rheumatoid disorders. Like there was always like I was going to all these doctors and they never really figured out what it was. And it wasn't until recently in 2019 when I got so sick that I had to be put on disability leave that I changed my doctors and I started seeing doctors at UCLA Medical Center. And they were like, this looks like a gluten issue. Stop eating gluten. But it was so hard for me to let go of like, what do you mean I can't eat bread? Like my favorite thing is bread with butter. Like, what do you mean I'm not supposed to eat pan dulce? And I'm a sweets person, right? And for emotional reasons, like just like I was an emotional spender, I was also an emotional eater. I really struggled in terms of like holding space for all of my emotions because of my lived experiences that I shared about in the beginning and, like managing PTSD.
Yeah.
But because of that, it was really, really hard for me to let go. So I'd kind of let go of it for a little bit and I would get better. And then I'd kind of eat again. And I just dealt with feeling sick all the time until I met my wellness coach, Naomi. And with her, I was able to finally let go of gluten. And now I just don't get sick. It's like crazy. It's crazy. I went so much of my life getting sick so quickly. If my kids sneezed, it was a matter of time before I was also sneezing. If anyone around me was sick, I was always getting so sick. And everyone was like, yeah, you have a bad immune system. You have a bad this.
Yeah. And it's those shifts, little shifts, right? And it takes time, a couple of steps forward, a couple of steps back. And do you remember when you had a pivotal moment? Or do you feel like it was like different areas of your life where you were beginning to kind of have these different shifts to get you to where you are right now?
I think it, like, I could count the different moments in my life where I was like, okay, 16 being in a wheelchair was really hard for me. 19, I had been in an abusive relationship and had an abortion. That was a huge shift in me. That's part of the reason why I was like, I'm not gonna put up with bullshit anymore. And it's why I decided to leave Occidental, right? Then I moved to New York City. In New York City, again, the people pleasing tendencies stayed with me. And even though I was so far away from my family, it was very hard for me to still not seek their approval and their validation. I get married at a young age because my family was like, you can't live with someone unless you're married to them. So I was like, okay, and go to court, got married. But then I ended that relationship and got a divorce from that. And that was like another pivotal thing. And each of these experiences, and I could like keep going with like moments where I was just like lights on, right? Each of those moments, I had just a strong belief. Like I just had this feeling in myself of I have to do something different. And I was being told by outsiders, people in my circle, family members, people around me, like, no, you don't have to do something different. Just stay here, stay in this path, follow this, this journey. And I
Yeah.
was like, no, 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 no. Like I just felt this strong pull to like 180 it. And each of those times I feel like, 180, 180, you keep doing all these turns, you end up in a different place. And that's where I'm at now.
Yeah, yeah, and the strong pull is like your own inner wisdom, right? Your intuition that you don't have words for it at the time. Just is like, no, I know this is not it. This is not what I need to be doing. This is not where I need to be. And so it sounds like those were a lot of your early manifesting experiences that weren't really as intentional, but obviously that intuition is still there. Can you tell us any of your most influential manifestations that you've experienced so far?
So far, I mean, okay, so I'm 37. Like how recent do you want?
Start with like a really big one that you were like, I 100% had faith when you started. Cause sometimes to help everyone that's listening, sometimes you will be 1000% into something that you want to do. And then you're in it, the energy trickles down, and part of you is like, did I even make the right choice? But you kind of continue to keep grounding yourself back to be like, no, I did. My intuition was right. and then, it unfolds and it's like a snowball. So anything like that where it's like,
Okay, for sure. Then it has to be the creation of Wealth Para Todos, my business, because I started Wealth Para Todos on Instagram, which was just a community that I wanted to talk dinero with. And that started February 20th, 2020. And which is like kind of nice because it's a lot of like angel numbers, right? Like, well, not necessarily an angel number, but 2 20 20, that's kind of close
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
So that's the first time I posted on Wealth Para Todos. And by the end of the year, I had people reaching out to me saying, "Hey, could you do a speaking engagement? Can you lead a workshop?" And I did that. And then the following year, I had people saying, like, "Yeah, do a speaking engagement over here. And can you coach me?" And I started to do a lot of freelance work in terms of financial education. But by October 2021, I had made $33,000 and as a freelancer, and I had just like saved all that money. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I can continue. Like, just, it felt like it felt so unstructured. It felt so um, uncertain. And I was like, I had made some money, but it wasn't necessarily money that could contribute consistently to my family household. And so I had a recruiter reach out to me on LinkedIn and they're like, we would love for you to manage our social media pages and a podcast for our financial company. And I was like, okay. And they were like, it's going to be $65,000. I said, I wouldn't do it for less than six figures. They agreed to pay me six figures to take care of it, to manage their social media. And then they said, but you'll have to get rid of Wealth Para Todos. You'll have to close that. And so I had to make this decision of, am I going to continue with Wealth Para Todos, or am I going to get a six-figure job and have certain income and health benefits and a employer retirement account? And I was I knew what I was doing was not sustainable, but I also didn't necessarily know how I could bring in regular revenue as a financial educator. And I decided not to take the six-figure job and instead take $10,000 to hire Catville
Mm-hmm.
Carmen, our business coach. And she helped me create my coaching business. And 11 months later, I made six figures.
Yeah. That's awesome. That is so awesome. I can't even imagine how hard that decision was, but was it? Was it actually hard? Yeah. It,
It wasn't. It wasn't hard. It wasn't. And that's the thing that I've noticed about like all these different times in my life. It was like everyone telling me, oh,
yeah.
it's you're crazy, you're crazy, you're crazy, you're crazy. This is so wild. No, you don't do this. But I've just learned this physical sensation that I get, like it feels like a warm liquid. It's like straight down my middle of my body. And it just feels like a warm little liquid that goes from my head all the way down to my feet. And I'm just like, no, we're going to do this. And I listen. I've just learned to listen to that. And I've learned also how to get into spaces and environments where it feels more accessible to me. So I know like if I'm near water, I feel a lot calmer. I feel a lot more ease. But anytime I'm near water, I kind of get like,
Yeah.
I don't know, these little urges. And then the repeated messages of like, yeah, this. And then I feel like it's like confirmation. And then I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And people from the outside are like, what? This is so crazy. And I'm like, con tiempo, you're going to understand that this is the
Yeah.
right thing.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting. I don't think many people said, and not many people have told me that I'm crazy. And I think because, I don't know, people are probably afraid to tell me anything. Honestly, I think everyone's just is like, oh, it's just normal. Like that, she's gonna do what she's gonna do, and if she says she's gonna do it, she's gonna do it. So I'm just thinking that, yeah. Fortunately, I haven't had a lot of battles in that way. I think more of my battles are more internal with myself. I make a decision, and then it's just like anyone else, that self doubt creeps in. And you have to learn how to ground yourself, right? Or connect with your inner self, which you talked about doing it with water. For me, it's either going on a hike, and for anyone listening, it may be a little different. It might be a mix of those different things. I know for me, I love to get up somewhere high where I can see a lot and feel myself be small. And I know that sounds funny because it's not that I feel big, but it reminds me that the world is big and it's safe, even if it is that big, as I am like thinking about all the beautiful hikes that I've ever been on and just being there. And it's like not even close to this, obviously the top of the sky, but it's like my way of connecting with the sky, which I'm sure connecting with the water is connecting you to something bigger too.
Well, I like really resonate with that too because I like looking at oceans and bodies of waters because I like seeing how it flows. I like the fluidity of water, and it reminds me to just fucking roll with things. Like I don't need to stay so stuck in a place. Like I can just flow. But when I also love to fly because when I am up in the air, I get that same feeling that you're talking about, those same thoughts about, the world is so big. And sometimes we get attached to these little thoughts, these little ideas, these little circumstances, these little things. And then when I'm up in the air, that is also like, I will journal. I love flying. I love a long flight. It's my favorite because I know I'm just going to be up in there, up in the sky, and I'm just going to be journaling. And I feel a lot of my great ideas or my next excitement about stuff happens up in the air too.
Yeah, that's funny. And I believe you're a Libra, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. You're an air sign. So of course, being up in the air and being up in your thoughts, and that's your zone, right? Where you'll get flowing. So it's funny that without even knowing that you are doing it already. So my other question is, have you ever had any bad manifesting advice? I know it's maybe not something that many people maybe have had, but can you recall anyone giving you any manifestation advice that you're just like, that seems too difficult or going against your own intuition?
Yeah, so I'm a parent of a trans child. And I remember a lot of people telling me, you have to teach your child how to be a boy. You have to teach your child how to be a boy. There, he's not going to learn if you don't teach him. You have to teach him what do boys do. Boys play with trucks. Boys are outside. Boys wear pants, you know. And I remember hearing that repeatedly from a lot of people around me. And I thought, y'all are just proving to me that gender is just a social construct. And so actually, I'm not. I'm not gonna enforce certain like gender norms, and instead, I'm just gonna allow my child to be who they are. And I had a 2-year old who wanted to wear dresses, and I had a lot of people in my life telling me that that was wrong, that it was irresponsible, that I was putting my child in danger of being bullied and attacked. And I just really grounded myself in terms of my child. And I really allowed my child to show me what it's like to just be yourself. And I remember telling my kid when they were 5 and they wanted to dress up as like this character and wanted like a wig and a whole dress. I said, there are going to be people at your birthday party, family members who are going to think that it's not okay that you're wearing a wig and that you're wearing a dress. And there people are going to say, you're a boy, you're not supposed to do that. And my kid responded with, okay, they could say that. They could have their own opinion. And I was just like, and I was like, well, is it going to bother you? Is it going to impact your birthday? Don't you want to have fun? Like, maybe we should do a little something different. And they're like, no, they can have their opinion. They don't have to like it. Just I have to like it. And I was just like, damn, okay, let's roll with that. Let's try to do that. And I think that even in terms of Wealth Para Todos, the first time Like my child and I had that conversation around October 2021. And so my child having that conversation and just really deciding like I am going to dress and act and talk and however I want really inspired me to be like, okay, I'm going to offer coaching services even though I'm self-taught because I had a lot of doubt about that. But I was just like, if I know that I'm on track to retire early because of everything I've learned. Like, why am I not going to share that with people just because society says, education is supposed to come behind a certificate or, a certain type of training. And so
Mhm.
it like there was a lot of alignment there. My child shared that with me. And then I was like, okay, let's, do what we got to do and let people have their opinions. And it's okay for them to have their opinions as long as we like what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Children, they're always a little wiser. And then, the world gives them all this bad advice that we have to learn to unshed. So, okay. And then, can you share any of your most impactful manifesting advice that you've received so far?
I think what I really appreciated from your presence in my life is just like the verbiage around everything. Like, I remember once you said to me, like, you're a natural manifester, soul. And I was like, I am. But I also like, I just decided that was going to be my identity. And now I say, whereas before, I think I used to say, like, oh, let's speak it into existence. Let's speak it into existence. Now I'm just like, I'll say, like, oh, we're manifesting this. And now I love that my family is also using that vocabulary and scripting, which you introduced me to, was something that I obviously from being in the wheelchair and spending time like visualizing, like it makes sense that it was something that would have such a great impact in my life. But you gave me that vocabulary and explaining it and attending your workshops and just following you online, you just provide so much value. I now feel like I have the words to describe manifesting and it just allows me to own it a lot more and let it be part of my spiritual self-care.
Yeah, being intentional with it versus just kind of it happening and not happening that that's in a negative way, but sometimes or oftentimes everyone is manifesting, but it's so unintentional that it doesn't give you that inner power to know like, no, I am doing this. This didn't just happen by accident. I actually had to step into this energy. I actually did put this intention behind it. And yes, maybe it unfolded months from now, which is why being more intentional and journaling on what you're manifesting and being able to come back like, oh, wow, I wrote this down 6 months ago and here it is, just so easy. But if you're not doing that, then you can't build that belief that you are the one manifesting these things, that you are in control of what you want to bring into your life. So yeah, having those words are alone are so powerful.
And another thing that you shared was in terms of the process of manifesting, right? And one of the things you shared was like cleansing before you sit down
Mm-hmm.
and manifest. And that has really shifted my mindset. And I think it helped me develop the habit of like actually folding clothes and cleaning my space. I'm someone with ADHD, and sometimes it's just really hard. Like it could be messy and I don't even see it. Like I don't even see how messy things are around me. But because I like manifesting and because I like the practice of, like lighting a candle as I was manifesting, built the habit to cleanse before. And so I found myself like, I really want to manifest. So let me fold these clothes. Let me just put everything back where it belongs. And I got really good at like cleaning like a lot faster. And I think like, I mean, I used to clean houses when I was in college. So I'm sure like I've always been good with cleaning, but it became like it served me. I felt like it served me to
Right, right.
actually spend time and energy cleaning because I was like, because I want to manifest and that's fun.
Yeah, yeah. And then you have that energy behind it too, right? Like I'm clearing out all this energy so that abundance can come in while we clean, I mean, that is kind of essentially what we're doing. But if you don't have that intentional thought behind it, it doesn't seem like fun. I mean, no one's going to say it's fun. Now you gave me the idea. to share that with my kids, well, my family in general, but my son when he comes home, because my plan was to for us to get the laundry and done and everything. And he's super into manifesting and loves it all. He literally manifested 7,000 Robux. I mean, V-Bucks one day. Like, and he had like maybe 2 weeks prior had told me, yeah, I have 7,000 V-Bucks, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, how do you have that? And then he was like, oh, I'm just kidding. I don't. But he would like gave me a whole story about how he manifested them. Right. And then I was like, are you like, is this real? Like, I didn't really believe him. And then when it actually happened 2 weeks later, he's like, no, really, I do. Look. And I was just like, whoa, you really do. Cause I don't know, he did something in the game and I don't know, was one of the people that got 7,000 Robux. I mean, and that's not like, I think that's usually like $8 or $10 or something. So it's not like a
Mm-hmm,
dollar or
mm-hmm.
something. So it was nice. And I forgot what he's recently manifesting, but always. And we're listening to different songs that talk about manifesting. And the other day, he was like, Mom stands for made out of money. I was like, oh, okay. Then he said, Dad, he said something dad with debt. And I was just like, no, 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 we can't have that. We can't have dad have debt in his little thing. And I forgot what he ended up saying. I'll have to ask him again. But it's just funny. Like, you teach your kids, or you just even open their mind to something. Because they're
Mm-hmm.
teaching us too, right? If you are willing to hear their own knowledge, because they do, they have knowledge. They are, I like to say, just clearer channels to receive these thoughts. And sometimes they won't even remember what they told you because it didn't come from their logical brain. It came from the divine connection. And that's what we need to remember, that sometimes, like, I'm looking back at some things that I've done in the past, and I've recently been talking a lot about expectation leads to frustration versus having an ideal. Because even in the language, you'll share with yourself, like, oh, ideally, I would like this to go this way, right? Whatever you are trying to manifest. But if you label it as an expectation, it starts to go into this should energy. Well, yesterday, I met with one of my clients that we meet like about monthly, and he's like, yeah, I shared this with my group at work, and you taught me this, and this was like months ago. And I was like, but I'm talking about this like it's the first time I even talked about this, but it isn't, and I was like, man, I need to write these down more, like exactly what I am working with people, because now I'm sharing it more. And not only that, but like he's now sharing it with people, right? And he's applying that to himself and his life, and how it's opening up doors and allowing him to be more flexible versus being in
Mm-hmm.
that should energy, which closes us off from abundance and from receiving. So, yeah, sometimes divine inspiration is going to come in, and it's waiting for you to be able to process it. And the most important thing is really to share it, just like you gained all that knowledge for a reason. And yes, it was to help yourself, but also to help the community.
Love. I'm getting all tingly listening to you.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you would like to share? Also, please share how my audience can connect with you and learn more about what you do with Wealth Para Todos.
The other thing I want to share is the reminder that you have shared about tapping into gratitude and being grateful for things. I have found myself my energy just feels very stuck when I feel like it feels like overwhelmed or exhausted or tired and just stuck. I feel very stuck. I have found that tapping into gratitude and just listing out, I'll just start writing down things that I'm grateful for, and I'll like challenge myself like 2 minutes, 20 things, andale, let's see how fast you can go. Because I do love a little game. And I'll do it, and that always just helps me shift my energy and allows me to get more into flow. And that's something that I've learned from you because I've seen you repeatedly express gratitude for different for different results in your life. And I've been like, oh yeah, that's like a good flowy energy. I don't know about that life.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And as you said it too, I was thinking even just moving your body, and you can, make this however, and that's what I love to teach is like everyone's journey, everyone's manifesting journey is going to be different. And the tools that you use are going to be similar. Like, yes, I might tell you you need to meditate, but I might say, like, well, for you, you need a walking meditation because you got to move that energy. Or, you need to just sit in silence or lay on the floor. That's one of my favorite things. Not right now, but because it's a little bit hard to get on the floor, but that is something that I like to tell some people, especially new moms, because sometimes it feels like there's not enough time to do what you need to do. I'm like, look, 1 to 2 minutes is all I'm asking. Lay down on the floor and allow yourself to just be. It's going to feel like a lot, but you do have that amount of time. And, you start off small and you start to enjoy those 2 minutes, and then that can lead to something bigger. It doesn't have to be, just like you say, poco a poco, right? And it's like, it doesn't have to be this huge thing. Like, I have 3-minute meditations that I recommend people. And, usually you hear like, you need to sit down for 20 minutes or 30 minutes. And I'm like, just do it for 3 minutes so you can feel the goodness, because you're never going to do it if someone tells you to do an hour-long meditation. It's
For
just the
sure.
reality. But if someone told you just do 3 minutes of working out, it might get you out that door. So, you got to tell yourself something different that works for you. Thank you so much for sharing everything, and share how they can connect with you.
Yeah, so you can connect with me on my website at www.wealthparatodos.com, on Instagram or on LinkedIn. I'm at Wealth Para Todos there too, or on Threads as well. I'd invite you to join my email list if you're interested in learning more about money and self-care. And don't be a stranger. Don't be a stranger. Feel free to DM me if there's anything that I shared today that resonated with you, that you're like, yeah, me too. Let's talk about it.
Thank you. Thank you so much again. Thank you for listening to the Manifesting Latina podcast. Did you love today's episode? Please help us grow by leaving a review, sharing with a friend, or on your social media. Let's spread the abundance and fun of manifesting.